And good evening. Welcome to Dave's Tackle Box on VTTV. It is 9 o'clock on the 22nd of February 2015. Now, tonight. A couple of things tonight. We're going to be rattling the tin a bit for the new Nicotine Alliance. We've got some VT from Dave, Dawn and Sav, another in the Thinking and Driving series. And for some reason, I managed to allow myself to be persuaded to try re-wicking this double coil RTA live on air without a safety net, so to speak. And we got the winners of the V-Spark competition, and we're going to be having a look and a play with all of this stuff. So I think there's plenty to be getting on with. So we better get on with it. And away we go. Right, I just had a moment of panic there because you wouldn't have noticed because I only showed this array of stuff like that, but the cotton wasn't there. And it would have been quite difficult trying to make a wick without any wicking material, but I got that now. But anyway, before we get to that stuff, one thing I do want to do, and I'll give you the sort of backstory to this. I was on Twitter the other day, and there was a topic of discussion, and I've said many times, if you want to know what's going on in the ongoing sort of struggle for the e-cig cause, then you need to be on Twitter. You know, if you're not on Twitter, join Twitter, right? Follow somebody like myself and Dave, Dawn, and the people that you know, and you'll see who we're talking to and the things that we're retweeting, and very quickly you'll build up a list of people to follow to get the news. Politicians tweet, public health people tweet. Sometimes I wish they wouldn't, but they do. Twitter is a good place to be, and if you've got a job and other things in your life, and it's probably the best way of keeping up to date with what's going on. Plus you tend to get things at like real time. Something happens on the BBC and we know about it within minutes normally. So Twitter, definitely advocate Twitter. And what I would also say is I'll just pop up this little here bug. If you want to tweet tonight using hashtag VTTV, if we get chance and I spot them, feel free to tweet hashtag VTTV, and I can display messages up on the screen if they're worthy of it. Right, yes, so anyway, I was on Twitter and there was a discussion going on about what seems to be a sort of coordinated campaign by the ants, the anti-nicotine and tobacco zealots, the public health people who seem to be, let's say exaggerating a little bit on the reports of studies, by which I mean lying, and really sort of a negative campaign going on with the media. And I saw a comment on Twitter, somebody saying, how come, they get so much coverage? And one of the answers that came back is they have the resources, they have people, they have time, they have money, and they have the ear of the media organisations like the BBC. I mean, these guys can get in front of the cameras and make their point. And a discussion ensued about, well, why do we as vapers not have such an organisation? And we do have such an organisation, and I want to sort of. There was a comment made by Sarah Jakes, who you might know as Twiglet, frequent viewer of VTTV, does some absolutely fantastic work for our cause in vaping advocacy, if you will, and she commented that there's a donate button on the webpage of the new Nicotine Alliance, and nobody'd ever used it. Now, I must admit, I hadn't seen that button, but I felt ashamed. This is an organisation which is carrying the message that we all want carried. They're doing fantastic work. They're all volunteers. Nobody's getting paid, and nobody is donating. If they send a letter, they have to pay for the stamp themselves. If they're going to attend a conference, if they're going to appear on the radio, to talk about the things that you and I want them to defend, to do our work for us, they're doing this out of their pockets. And I think, somebody made the point, with funding, there may be, we can start sort of infiltrating some of these organisations and fighting this the propaganda and the crap when it appears. So, as I say, shamed by this, I went along to the new Nicotine Alliance website, which I hadn't visited for some time, and I should have. But let me share it with you. I think somebody's going to drop a link into chat, but it's basically nnalliance.org. I'm not going to read out the whole website. This is something you can take your time doing. I'm just going to read their kind of little mission statement, if you like. Just to explain who they are if you're not familiar. But the new Nicotine Alliance UK is an independent, not-for-profit organisation concerned with improving public health through a greater understanding of new, i.e. risk-reduced nicotine products and their uses. For that, for us, you can read e-cigs. The message on the website actually says we are currently seeking charitable status, but I gather, because I was on Twitter and Lorian tweeted it about a week ago, they've actually achieved their charitable status now. So they're a registered charity. So that's, if you're concerned about where the money's going and whether you're concerned about it lining people's pockets or whatever, they're now a registered charity. Okay. You can see quite clearly there on the screen on the right hand side near the top there's a donate button. Do it. Let me just I won't go through the whole site, as I say, but if you're wondering about who's behind it, these are people. If you're a VTTV regular viewer, you'll know most of these names. Paddy Costal has been quite a regular guest on Dave Dawn's show and on VT Talk when we used to run that. Sarah, I was just talking about, aka Twiglet. Lorian Jolie, who Cerulean C, you may know her as, involved with ECHA UK, Andy Morrison, John Spring, and Jerry Stimson. These are all people that you know, and they're good people who put their heart and soul into fighting for us. So let's try and help them out a bit with a donation. They also have associates, and I wanted to go find out how you become an associate, but I wasn't too concerned with that now. But again, I think if you're on Twitter regularly, if you frequent any of the vaping forums, if you watch VTTV, these are people who'll be quite familiar to you. Clive Bates, Alan Beard, Tony Burt, Liam Bryan, Martin Coolip, Alan DePau, Dave Dawn, he sounds familiar. Ollie Kershaw from ECF, and the list goes on and the list goes on. There's Ridian and Brothbeard, Rebecca Taylor, the former Lib Dem MEP, Simon Thurlow, Sue Wilson. There's a bunch of people working hard for us and what we want to continue to do. So I'm begging, basically. I am shaking the virtual collection tin. Hit that donate button. Don't have to give a fortune. What I elected to do actually is I've signed up, and it's a PayPal thing, and I've just signed up. There's a little box you can check to say do this every month, so I've just donated a £5 a month. A couple of 100 of us do that, and then they've actually got some serious capital that they can start, like, they can use for travel expenses or whatever they need to do with it, so I would implore you, this is a way, if you're wondering how you can make a difference, how you can make your voice heard, use the new Nicotine Alliance, because they can definitely help with that. Okay, so I promised I would give it a plug, and I just did, and I seriously believe in it. I seriously believe that it's something we should be supporting. Just after this, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff I was looking at last week, just for a few minutes. But so be right back. Right, now last week I was talking about e-cig stuff, you might remember, and there were two things that I was going to try. One was the this silicon sleeve that I got from Cloud9 Vaping for the e-cig, the original 20-watt e-cig. This thing is brilliant. It totally transforms it. It is better in cold weather. It doesn't freeze your hand when you're using it. It kind of... It's actually transformed the thing. I really like it. You could argue that it's not that, it's just, it's not that sort of a radical a change to it. Sorry, I've just noticed I've knocked the voltage up. I must have been pressing the button in my pocket. But I have found that thing indispensable now. So that has lived on there. And I've been using it while I've been in Switzerland all week, and it's been fine. So I promised I'd let you know how I got on with that, and I got on very well with it. The other thing that I took to Switzerland with me last week, so and I used it basically anywhere where I thought that might be a bit more conspicuous than it needed to be. So I used it on the plane, and I used it in the office a couple of times, because it's basically you can just shove it in your trouser pocket and take it to meetings and stuff, which is exactly what I did with it. The e-cig Mini, or the Mini e-cig, to use its correct name, and it was absolutely brilliant. I kind of had to charge it every night, which I don't always have to do with this thing, because, like, while I'm at work, I'm not sort of chain vaping, if you like. But it was brilliant. It did the job. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. It's a great little tool. One thing that I did notice with it is the display on mine, and I don't know whether this is common. I haven't used this since I fully charged it, and it's already dropped to 96%. Now, that's a little bit odd. And sometimes I'd been using it for hours, and it would say like 40% or something. You probably see that. You get the little... yeah, you can see that. I think it says 96% on there. That would drop down to like 40% or something. So I'd plug it into a USB port that I've always used for charging things like the MVP and this full-size e-cig without any problems. And then, like, after 5 minutes, it'd say 100%. But the little percentage sign was still flashing. So it was almost as though the level got a bit confused. I mean, it didn't matter too much because I just left it on overnight, like you're not supposed to, on the cabinet at the side of the bed in the hotel room, and then it would work. So it obviously was charging, but the little readout, I'm not sure how accurate that is. So I shall continue to monitor that, and if I learn anything, I'll share it with you. Now, I guess this is a good time actually too. You may remember a couple of weeks ago we ran a competition run by sparksecigs.co.uk, and we had 5 of these V-Spark variable voltage kits up for grabs. The competition actually ended last week, but I didn't have the list of names to announce on Sunday night. So the chances are that the people who won already know they won. But just in case they don't, I will share this screen with you, and we can announce the winners as Carl P, somebody called Michael, Paul K, Sonny P, and Vapeness Doobie D. We know who that is. These guys all won one of these kits, so well done to you guys, and thanks very much to sparksecigs.co.uk for running that competition for us. It's extremely good of them, and these are good kits, whether you use them yourself or give them to somebody who's thinking of trying vaping, entirely up to you, but whatever you do, enjoy them, and well done. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the first ad break while I limber up and prepare for this Goblin tank rebuild, because let's face it, I can only put it off so long. I'll see you straight after this.
Joytech UK are proud sponsors of VapeTrails.tv.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
RY4 Radio.
And welcome back, and I had to quickly glance then. I've had to install an extra camera tonight. So this is all a little bit sort of, how do I say this, a little bit kind of seat of the pants. I've put this camera here basically so I can turn to you, because the other camera I have set up is like this, but I can still do this, you see. Now, right, my original intention, I'll go back to full screen so you can see my sincerity. My original intention was to record a VT on this thing. This is the UD Goblin rebuildable dual coil, all singing, all dancing, wonderful tank. I was going to do VT, and the good thing about VTs, if you've got the time to do them, is you can cut out all the mistakes. I didn't have time this week to do this, and then being a bit of a gobby sort of prat, I sort of mentioned on Twitter, I might do it live, and that got a bit of interest, and then I got a couple of messages and a couple of emails through the blog, and I said, all right, I'll do it live. I'll without a safety net, I am going to try and build this thing from scratch, and do some sub-ohming with it before the end of the show. What could possibly go wrong? Just to get my excuses in early, I've pulled a muscle in my shoulder here, and I've got to do this kind of at arm's length. That's just to add, just to make it more of an accomplishment, basically. So I'm sure you're all wishing me luck, and I know that none of you are hoping that I'll screw it up. But I'm going to give it a go anyway. So it is the UD, and I've said, UD have been making stuff for ages, but I've only just noticed that they've started being called UD, as in YOUDE. UD. Because it says, if you can see the box, it says UD, and then underneath it says UD Technology Goblin tank. First impressions are, it comes in an absolutely lovely box, and it's almost like carbon fibre-y sort of. It's not, it's just embossed card, but it looks really smart, nicely packaged. I got it from cloud9vaping.co.uk, sponsors of this show, great people, and it cost me £27.95 and plus postage, but I bought a whole bunch of other stuff as well at the same time, including that silicone thing for the eye stick and everything, so the postage becomes insignificant after a while, doesn't it, if you put enough in the basket. And it arrived the next day, and I've had it just over a week. It arrived last Thursday, I think, so I set it up last Friday, used it for a few days, left it here when I went to Switzerland, came back, and I've been loving it. But what I've done is I've totally stripped it down, cleaned it up, put it back in the box so we can go again. I'm really hoping that I'm going to get this to work live on air, but well, let's see how that goes, shall we? So right, if I flick back to the other shot here, so you can see I have accumulated some stuff, the stuff that I've accumulated. First thing is, I got a couple of tanks, like I got the Atlantis and this thing, and I'd been using my normal 28 milligram homebrew DY4 e-liquid in it, and it was killing me. So what I've done is I've made some a lot weaker. This is about, I didn't measure it too accurately, but it's going to be about 9 or 10 milligram, and I've made it a bit more VG than I normally would. It's probably about an 80-20 VG to PG sort of blend by now, I would think. The only PG in it is in the concentrate. It's a lot lower nic content to give me chance of sub-ohming it without coughing. We have wick now, which if you saw the start of the programme, we nearly didn't, but now we do. But I'll just put that to one side for a moment. I've got a syringe to fill it with, purely because my liquid's in this bottle. Any bottle with a nozzle would do normally, but I didn't have a little bottle to decant it in. And then I've got like the normal kind of rebuilding stuff that you would expect to see. Oh, of course, we've got a mod to run it on. We're going to build a coil which should come out somewhere about 0.3 or 0.4 of an ohm, I guess. I'm using 0.42 canthal, just normal round canthal wire. I've already cut off a number of lengths there just to... so I need 2 because it's a dual coil device, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there in case I screw any up. We've got a drip tip, which if we get as far as needing that, I'll be happy. You may have seen last week I used this thing, the Coil Master. for making the coil, so I'm going to try and use this again. I did a practice one earlier and it seemed to go okay. I'm using the 2.5mm. We never did decide what it was called, did we? Spindle, flange, whatever. The 2.5mm sticky bit to make my coils. So we'll get to that. I've actually got 2 multi-tools here because this one's got really good scissors for snipping the wire and the wicking material, and this one has a great Phillips driver on it for the various parts of the atomizer that we're using, tweezers, blah blah blah, all of that stuff. Let's look at what we've come to see. So as I say, it's in a beautiful package. You open it up and it kind of opens that way, and there's a little cord here which lifts the device out. Like I say, I have been using this, but I emptied it, dried it off and put it back pretty much the way I found it, but you can see that there's been juice in it already. We'll just stand that like that for a moment. Little instruction leaflet, which I admit I'd looked at earlier today for the first time. I found that it was all pretty obvious the way it works. The tank as it comes out the box has a 2mm tank setup. I'll show you very briefly. First thing I'll show you is that it's got an adjustable centre pin, centre post, positive post, so you can adjust that to fit your 510 connection. There's an airflow adjuster on it, which, if I hold that a bit closer to the camera so you can see a bit better, you can see there the air adjustment for airflow. There we go. Trying to get it so I can see it. The camera's all backwards and everything. I'll get used to it just before we finish normally, where I've positioned the camera. See how that works? That ring actually just comes off. There's nothing holding that in place, and I recommend you do take it off while you're rebuilding. And the reason for that is simple. It means that when you come to unscrew the tank to put your coil and your wick in, it actually does, because if you leave that on, it just spins round and round and round and round, and you get nowhere. So this has got a 2mm capacity as it comes out of the box. You've got like a 2mm tank. It's apparently I think it's Pyrex. Yeah, Pyrex. I've got the Cloud9 description on my other screen here. I'll give you the specs. There we go. I've smashed that already. Not quite. It says, I'll run through the specs. It's brushed 304 stainless steel, and I can tell you there's some weight in that. You know, that's considering that it's physically a lot less bulky than something like the Kayfun. It's actually quite a similar sort of weight, I would have said. It's a dual coil setup. It says it's a Pyrex viewing window, and what they call a viewing window I'd call a tank, I guess, but I suppose they're right. A little red O-ring thing on there, and I just heard a noise then. I'm not sure where it came from. No, we shall continue. The chimney here can be removed, and I'm just going to wipe off the remnants of the juice that I had on there before. I've got a cloth somewhere. I knew there was something I'd forget. I have my cleaning up cloth. There we go. I'll keep that out of shot. Don't want to look at that. So you've got like a little chimney with a thread on the top, and now I'll take you back to the back box. We took the tank out of there. Let's get that in shot. But if you flip it over and open it up, inside you've got a 3.5mm tank and some little bits. Get that out of the way. Just show you this stuff. We're not going to be using this tonight. There's a bit of wicking, wick in there, and some spare O-rings and a little bit of wire. And you might be able to make out like there's a bigger chimney, or an extension for the chimney. That's actually 2 pieces, but I'm not going to unscrew it. There's an extended version of this little chimney piece and a bigger tank, which you can take it up to 3.5mm. But I'm just going to stick with the 2mm setup for tonight. because it's just a demo, isn't it? And like, it's really cute little screwdriver. There you go. They're going through the rest of the spec. It says it's got airflow control, which we already saw. You fill it, once you've built it and put it together, you fill it just like you do with the Kayfen. There's a little screw in the bottom there. And I can probably zoom this in a little bit more, actually, which might make it a bit easier to see what's going on. There's a little screw there. If I tip it the right way, which you can remove to put your juice in, which is the last step, so we'll leave it in for now. And we've mentioned the adjustable centre pole, and that you get your basic spares pack and screwdriver. So, you know, to be honest with you, for £27.95, there's quite a lot of kit here. It ain't bad, is it, really? Well, assuming it works, of course. Assuming it works. But I am now going to attempt from scratch to put 2 coils on this, wick it, put it together, and see if we can get some vapour out of it before the end of the show. What could possibly go wrong? So as I say, I did manage to cast one eye at chat there, and this might be a mandrel. This could be a mandrel. Which way do I have to move this to get it into shot? There we go. This is the 2.5mm one, and the reason I'm going with this is I did a sort of experimental setup last week to see how I was getting on with it, and really liked the results, so I'm going to do the same again. I've cut, I don't know how long's that, probably about 6 inches of this 0.42 canthal, and I need to make 2 coils, don't I? So you need sort of, I'd leave the tails of your coil, whatever method you use to make the coil, I'd make sure you've got like a reasonable length of tail there, because it's a right fiddly thing to put together. I'll just drop it into that Atty stand ready. It'll stop it rolling off. Yeah, so I'm going to, like I say, just based on what I did last week that I was using up until this morning on this, I'm going to put 6 turns on each coil of this 0.42 canthal. So let's see if we can make this coil without any drama. Here we go. That's 1 turn, 2 turns, 3, 4, 5, 6. And a little bit more just for good luck, because it will uncoil slightly, and press that together, and we should be able to just lift that off and have a coil. And we do, and it's not too bad. So we can get it in focus. Yeah, you can see that. There's a coil. Nothing wrong with that. Might have gone an extra turn on that. No, I think it's okay. Just quick count. So that's 1 coil. So I think you can get good results with this thing, can't you? If they all go as easily as that, then that will have been well worth the tenner I spent on it, basically. But here we go. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. Squish it down a bit. That's close enough. Now, so yeah, there's another one. So we have our 2 coils. They're not bad. Like I say, I used the 2.5mm mandrel. I thought that was a type of monkey, but there you go. We can dispense with that for a bit. Now, the next thing we have to do is get this onto the Atty. So let's just tighten that up so it doesn't roll about too much. I'm just going to give you a close-up on the camera of this thing. It is intricate. It is fiddly. You've basically got 4 terminals that are in play, because it's a double coil and each coil's got 2 tails, right? So, not exactly rocket science, I know. But what we're going to do to get it to fit, we're going to put the coil on this side. I'm going to put through one of the external posts, and then in the middle for the positive connection, the hole that's furthest away from that. Yeah, to make physical, because like if you went side by side, it wouldn't sit over the air holes. You can see the air holes there, and we want to make sure it's over the air holes. So with apologies for how much you can or can't see, I'm going to try and keep this in shot, but it is a little bit fiddly. But let's get the first one loosely in place. Might have to just slacken those terminals off. I'll use the screwdriver they supplied. I didn't up until now, but we might as well, mightn't we? We are sort of doing a kind of review or test of what we bought, so let's use the screwdriver that came with it. Now, what I found is, and I think it's because these coils are actually sort of quite big, is that getting the coil to sit so it's sitting in the right direction and over the hole without touching the deck where the air hole is a lot easier to say than it is to actually deliver. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn that upside down. I mean, there's a little bit of messing around and faffing about here to get that coil where you want it to be, and you do want it to sit just over the air hole, but not so it's going to touch the air hole, because you don't want it to touch that deck, because then you're going to get like some kind of short, aren't you? You're going to get hot spots and stuff. So just sort of, one good thing about using this thick wire is you can manhandle it a bit into place. I don't claim to be an expert or even any good at this coiling lark. I don't do anywhere near enough of it, but my first attempt, I was really pleased with the results, so I'm hoping I can deliver at least that again tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that coil roughly in place. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not going to worry too much about the angle it's sitting at yet, and then just sort of tighten down the terminals so it's roughly in place. And then what I was doing is I was just getting the mandrel on here and manipulating it into place like that. And what I found was I had to slacken that off and take up a bit of slack on the tail a couple of times. I hope that makes sense. And a little bit of fiddling and faffing, and eventually you'll end up with the coil sitting about where it needs to be. I'm going to give it a little squish with the tweezers just to make sure it's all even again, and make sure it's in place. Like I say, if I was using a narrower gauge wire, then that, I suppose that could cause a bit of an issue, but with this it seems to work, and I don't think that's too bad now. I'll try and get it up to the camera so you can see what I've done, if the camera will focus. There we go. Focus, and you can see the coil is sitting in about the right place, just above the air hole, fairly tidy. Now I'll tighten down the terminals properly, not too tight because that can snap wire, can't it? And that's probably one of the most disheartening things about rebuildables. One last little tweak to make sure it's in place. Use the screwdriver for that. There we go. And then I'm going to snip off the tails. There's not a lot of space to work on this device. But our first coil is in. Done. So I shall try and do the other one a little bit quicker, having demonstrated the principles of it. I think it's just a case, like with all of these things really. This one can be a bit of fun, because if the coil on this side is a little bit too high, then when you pass the wire through from the other side for the other coil, it won't come through. So, you know, do not be disheartened, I think, if you takes you a couple of goes to get this right. So I got lucky the first time, I just did it and it just worked. And I did think long and hard about whether I really wanted to take it all apart. A perfectly good coil, a perfectly good setup just to film it. But hey, such is the life of a VTTV presenter. So again, I'm going to tighten that end down, get the coil roughly into place, about where it wants to be, tighten the other terminal down. I know this is tricky to see, I hope it's not too boring. Tweezers to squish it into shape again. That wants to be pulled through a little bit more, I think. Just push it through a bit more. And there. And for me at least, you know, I'm sure other people will be far more skillful at this kind of thing than I am. I'd be surprised if they weren't. But for me, I think it's the key to it is not to be frightened, to just like, if the coil bends out of shape a bit, don't be frightened about manhandling it back into position again. You know, it is just a bit of metal. And provided you're not bending it at right angles and all the rest of it, it's, you know, it's not going to snap or anything on you. So just take as long as you need to get it all into place. Just snip off the end there without snipping the other coil, and of course making sure there's going to be no short between the two coils, because everything's very close together by necessity. And I think actually that's not too bad. I'd say on a scale of 1 to the last setup I did, that's probably similar in terms of neatness. Let's see if I can get, there we go. Yeah, so that's not too bad, I think. Got two fairly neat coils, nothing's touching where it shouldn't be. Make sure that the coils are not sticking out past this threaded area where the chimney's going to go. The chimney, you see the threaded bit just here. If I point with the tweezers, that might be a bit better. This is a threaded bit. If the coils are sticking out past there, then of course when you put the little chimney part on, it's going to touch, isn't it, and push it out of shape and out of place, and then anything could happen. But I think nothing's touching where it shouldn't be. Everything looks okay there. So the first thing I'll do before I go any further is I'll stick it onto a device and just pulse it a little bit. Where did I put that mod? So this is the X Pro thing, this 50 watt thing, the Smock X Pro BT50 that we looked at a couple of months ago now probably. And what I'm going to do is just going to put a little power through this just to make sure both coils are glowing. It sizzled a little bit there. Oh, and something's gone. Yeah, something's gone. Might be cutting out. Let's see what it's reading on the atomizer. Oh, it's 0 ohms. So it looks as though, just having a look to see if I can see where anything snapped. It looks okay. There's a short or something somewhere. Can't see anything wrong. Let's just see. Push that through now. I've squashed that coil a little bit while I've been manhandling it into place. So just check. That seems okay. That seems okay. Let's just see if I can get a reading of. Let's make it register basically. And it's not registering, which is interesting. Why is that then? It certainly hasn't burnt out. I can't see any kind of short. That's possibly a little bit close to that. Sorry about this. No, we've still got 0 ohms here. So I cannot see what I've done. So we're going to drop that off just to make sure I get a proper look at it. And I cannot see anywhere where that might be shorting. Which is wonderful. Right. I wish I had my multimeter here with me. I should have really, shouldn't I? But I don't. I'm just pulling the coils away from the terminals just to make sure there isn't something touching there that I just can't spot. And I really can't see any reason at all why that isn't firing. Gotta love it, haven't you? There was heat. I felt heat in the coil when I did it, so I'm sure the positive is registering. Oh, there we go. There we go. We've now got 0.2 ohm reading, which is a little bit lower than I wanted it to be. But as you can see, the coils are now glowing again. And glowing quite evenly and nicely, actually. But I'm wondering where that little bit of short is coming from. Just going to let that cool for a second before I stick my fingers on it. Yeah, it's fine. So, okay, we have a functioning atomizer at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that that the chimney is going to go on basically without me pushing anything where it shouldn't be pushed. Make sure the coils are over the air holes again, because I pulled them about a bit, but I must have had something touching or something. As you can see, there's not a lot of room to manoeuvre in there. Just checking that I can actually get something between that and the coil. That seems okay. If this fires, we're going to go for it. As Pete Collins says, 10 minutes to go get wicking. There we go, now we're at 0.3 ohms, which is about where I said, wasn't it? 0.3, 0.4, something like that. They look like decent coils to me. They're good enough to go with, given that we're short of time. So I'm just going to get a little bit of cotton. This is just, there's nothing special about this cotton at all. I have no idea what the country of origin was. I don't really care, to be honest. All I know is it's unbleached and it's got no crap on it. I think it came from Boots. And I just asked the missus to start using these for her makeup. So I've got like pretty much limitless supply of the stuff. We're going to put a wick through. And this ain't going to be particularly pretty because we are running out of time. So anything that's going to work will do for tonight now. But actually, I think that should be okay. Let's put this piece back on and make sure we get it the right way. Should have done that before I put the wick on, really, shouldn't I? This is the sort of the juice well wall, if you like, that I took off when I was trying to see where the short was. And I should definitely have put that on before I put the wick in. How you live and learn. Oh, actually, come. Stupid cotton. There, that should do it. Because if there's cotton stuck in there, there's a good chance it's going to leak, I would think. Okay, right. So, I think that's going to be all right. So I'm just going to trim the ends off this. Obviously, you can see there's quite a lot of cotton on there at the moment, but it's got to fit inside here. And what you don't want is so much cotton that it's going to actually push, when you press that down and screw it down, that it's going to sort of move the coils about. You've seen how little leeway you've got already during this little demonstration. So what we don't want to do is have any more in that chamber than we need. I'm probably going to end up re-wicking this tomorrow. But there's, you know, to my knowledge anyway, there's nothing particular about this atomizer that's different. Just wick it in your normal way. And it should do the job. And we're going to, I think we'll stick a little bit of juice on. I know we're short of time, but I know we're a little bit short of time. But we might as well do this properly and make sure it's going to work before we put it back together. That seems to be working, doesn't it? So this is always the bit I have fun with the Kafen as well. So I don't know whether I just make hard work of it or what, but I find that everything can just go to pot at this stage. But here we go. On with the chimbly. We've got a bit of juice on there, so I might just give it a little test and blow through the air hole at the side. You see that's making vapour. This is what we want. So we actually have a functioning atomizer now. How good it is I really couldn't tell you at this stage. But the coils look decent, didn't they? So I'm just going to really sort of press along. The top of the chimney has a thread on it, which matches the thread which is the top cap of the tank. So by putting that in there and screwing it fairly tightly, because we don't want any leaks, that should do it. The little screwdriver they give you is no good for removing the filler screw. That's why this baby's here. But I can remove this little, it's kind of a grub screw. It's not like the Kafen, it's more like a grub screw. If we take that out, then we can fill the tank. And I'll need a bit more than that probably in my syringe. There we go, it's a bit thick, this liquid. And I dropped that, didn't I? somehow I managed to drop that without juice going everywhere, so maybe my luck's changing. That should give us some. We can put the airflow control ring thing back on. Put that on there. Oh, it's dripping everywhere. It's dripping everywhere. Let me get the cloth. Because Dozy forgot to put the screw back in. Oh, God. Hang on. I'm not going to let this beat me. I think I've got about 6 minutes left on the clock. Right, we have juice. We'll give that a little wipe. I forgot to put the screw back in, man. How ridiculous. It's the pressure. It's the pressure of live TV. In it goes. I definitely recommend when you do this that you don't do it like when you're trying to lean past a tripod. That would definitely be my advice. Do it somewhere where you can reach easily. Right. And maybe it won't pour everywhere now. I'll just give that a little wipe with a cloth because, yeah. You know, you were there. What leak? I've managed to pour it all over the top of the mod as well. Well, you know, if job's worth doing, might as well do it right, eh? On it goes. Alright. Open the air hole fully. Got this nice big sort of baked bean can drip tip. 2 puffs. Hopefully it'll sizzle. It does. Let's get back on the other camera. If I'll have to wake my computer back up so I can change the camera. But there we are. We're on the right camera now. I actually meant to go to the other camera. I did it. I did it with a couple of minutes to spare. We're not going to be watching that VT tonight, but we've got that for next week then. It would appear to work. So this is a 0.2 ohm coil. I've got it 35 watts on here currently. And I can still taste the camphor a little bit. But my experience was with the first setup I did, I've got juice everywhere because I forgot to put the screw back on the tank. But I think it works, and actually it works quite well. This, frankly, that vape's better than the Aspire Atlantis. There's no doubt about that in my mind, because I got back home on Thursday night, like I say, and I've been sat at this desk all day Friday and in and out over the weekend, and I've been alternating between the two tanks to see, you know, see what the differences between them are in terms of the way they vape. And this is every bit as good. And of course, with this being a rebuildable, I can coil whatever I want with it, rather than depending on the cartridge of the Atlantis. So if rebuilding's your thing, I think it looks pretty good as well. You can the way they've done it is you can read the logo through the juice and stuff like that. I mean the drip tip that doesn't come with it. You can put whatever you like on the top. But like I say, I mean that's a brand new coil, and I think I think there's no complaints about how that's producing, is there? So that is juice everywhere, man. That is the UD Goblin tank, and that's it. Now I'm going to go back to the other camera now, because I have one more thing to do. Everything else that was scheduled for tonight will have to wait till next week. It's that simple. But I have one message that I have to convey, because people asked me to convey it. This is a funding campaign on GoFundMe for a guy who we know as Richard Pruin, who may even be in chat tonight. And basically we're trying to raise money so he can attend the IEEE meetings to basically propose a standard for, as I understand it, battery safety. Now, I say as I understand it because I haven't had time to research into this, but they did ask if I could raise the profile of this a bit and just mention it tonight. Now, what I can tell you is that Andy Abrook and Davey Malik will be covering this tomorrow night on their show. So 9 o'clock tomorrow night on VTTV on Drips and Tips. It'll be one of a few interesting topics they've got. So get along and understand what this is about. This is something worth supporting also. So that's the second time I've asked you to put your hand in your pocket tonight. Get the details of this tomorrow night, because I don't have the detail, and I certainly don't have the time. But Andy and Davey will cover it tomorrow night. Tuesday night, Marco has got some very interesting topics lined up as well. I'm not going to say too much at the moment because he was still like putting the final touches and lining stuff up and getting some interviews sorted. But certainly a topic that I'm very interested in. On Wednesday night, we've got The Cave with Matt, so be there or be square. Dave's back with the Haze Hour on Thursday before it's round to me again next Sunday. Don't think I missed anybody. And RY4 Radio all week as well. And I've overrun, so I better get off the air before people start shouting at me. I'll be back same time, 9 o'clock next week on vaportrails.tv. Until then, thanks for watching and good night.